Welcome back to Open Window Politics. They're going to be doing a prediction between AOC, a Democratic Congresswoman from New York, on the Democratic side, versus the usual candidate for the Republicans that is currently viewed as the most likely option to win the Republican primary in 2028, that being J.D. Vance. He's the current vice president, and I think this would be an interesting matchup. I think that Vance is definitely far more likely to be the Republican Party's nominee than AOC is to be the Democratic Party nominee, but we'll have to see. It's fun to do these predictions anyways. So I do think I'm going to start in Nevada and then work my way east. So I do think, I've got a tilt characterization. I do think in the state of Nevada's going to be interesting. They've shown they're open to voting for Republicans. Trump was even able to win the state in 2024. They do have Democratic senators, but they do have a Republican governor, so they've been willing to go either way. I do think that AOC, a little bit more progressive ideology, would turn off some key voting demographic groups in many of these swing states, and I think that would be the same story there in the state of Nevada. And then Arizona, I'm on the fence about whether or not it would be a lean or a tilt red. I do think that nonetheless it would most likely end up in the Republican column. For now, I'm going to go with lean. Could change. This is going to be interesting. Generally, it is a pretty favorable landscape for the Democrats right now, but I do think that some of that would be negated by putting forward a candidate that is quite a bit more progressive than the majority of the Democratic Party. So AOC would possibly alienate some voters, which I think would play a crucial role in the Southwest. And next up, I'm actually going to go to the Rust Belt next. I do think in the Rust Belt, I'm actually going to go to the lean district, or the tilt district there in Nebraska. That is one electoral college vote. Even Harris was able to win it, and that was a pretty bad showing for Democrats on the national stage anyway. So I do think that since there is a slightly better stage for Democrats on the national level, that they would be able to hold the seat or hold the electoral college district, even with a candidate that is quite a bit more progressive. And then I do think that in the state of Wisconsin, that is the most likely to remain, or not remain, that would be in the Democratic Party's column with AOC as the nominee. I do think that Michigan and Pennsylvania would probably vote differently. I'm going to go, I think Michigan is probably the state I'm most apprehensive to call. There's going to be a Senate election there in 2026, so we're going to see what happens there as a possible indicator about whether or not the state will be willing to vote for Democrat on the presidential level. For now, I'm going to go with tilt blue. I do think that Vance certainly has a shot in winning the state of Michigan and even Wisconsin. Wisconsin I'd feel apprehensive about, but I do think that if AOC were to win any two swing states, it would probably be these two, as well as the congressional district there in Nebraska. And that leaves us with Pennsylvania and the southeastern part of the Sun Belt. I do think that in the state of Pennsylvania, that it would most likely be a Republican win. That is going to be a victory for J.D. Vance. That brings him to 255, AOC 251. And then we get to these two swing states here, Georgia and North Carolina. Georgia and North Carolina are going to be interesting cases. I do think that AOC probably won't be able to win the state of North Carolina, and that Vance will hold that for the Republicans. I feel fairly confident in calling that. I might even be willing to do it as a lean. For now, I'm just going to go with tilt. But for now, that is going to be 16 electoral college votes for J.D. Vance, bringing him to 271. And I do think that the math will get even better for J.D. Vance, being that he will most likely, if I were to call it today, would probably win the state of Georgia against the Democratic nominee of AOC. Feel free to let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to disagree with me or agree with me in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks. Bye.